All of you to St. Peter.
Yes.
I want to thank the family of the Bible City Party for giving me this opportunity to come home. I really do look forward to this opportunity to come and spend time with my people in St. Peter. And this evening, I really must begin by thanking the members of the St. Peter branch who have held me up for 28 years. I have been in public life now for 28 years, and I feel as if I have risen on the back of giants. There are people in this audience this evening who have been with me from the very start. I think of the name of this school, Alton Paris. She was one of the most extraordinary rates you could ever come across. She used to come to branch meetings in her old age just to give her monthly contributions to keep this party going. And there have been people who have been with me, the Ashford boys. Here this evening, on his crutch, Wilfred World. All the folks from Spikestone, and there are others who have gone. My mother, his Ben father, and others. And I start on this stone because I came to public life 28 years ago with a passion to serve. I came with the passion to be my mother's representative and to be my grandmother's representative, and my brother and my sisters and my father and my aunts and my cousins and people I Ashford would grow up with and Bedford would know from the time I was a child. And there was a passion to serve St. Peter, and that passion has not ended. It may take me now in a new direction. In the past, I might have been inspired by the passion to be my grandmother's representative. But for reasons that I will speak about this evening, I am not only inspired by the passion to represent the people who I grew up with, but I look to a future that the Democratic Labour Party is making what it was not used to be in this country. And I reflect upon the fact that I now have a daughter who has just gotten married and wants to start life. And I have another daughter who has just started secondary school. And I ask myself the question, well, what kind of Barbados will they live in if we allow what is happening to continue to happen without rising up and raising our voices and taking a stand and making sure that it is brought to an end? So this evening, I might be soliciting the branch in St. Peter. I came with a passion to serve. And that passion is undiminished. And that passion is still to serve St. Peter. First and foremost, and the rest of Barbados has to bear with me. Yesterday I spent 6 hours in another constituency. Every Friday night, every Saturday night, every Sunday I'm in other people's constituency, because the St. Peter branch people understand that there is no point my winning my seat by an overwhelming majority, but we losing the government. And they allow me that be truth. But I will still want to make sure that St. Peter's interests are looked after. And what is happening in St. Peter is but a microcosm of the madness and the ignorance that is happening in this country. Manny Wilkinson and Charles survived 2 wars, but it could not survive the Gambia. I laugh at these things, and that's not to laugh. And as I speak to you, Haywoods is closed. Ammon Beach is closed. Spikestown is becoming a ghost town. We had a concept for the development of Barbados, of which the North was an integral part of it. We felt that we could build a tourism industry that had something new brought to it. Florida is the place where you have the largest concentration of retirees in the world. And we sought to add to Barbados' tourism by giving permission and incentives for two retirement villages to be located in Barbados, one at Black Bass and the next at Mount Bermuda. The number of jobs they would generate all across the spectrum, massive. And I hear people talk about paradise, but people don't ever remember that those two retirement villages that could have been put in place in St. Peter, that has started, rows in, houses in, have been abandoned. And you have to say the question, what is happening? But I can tell you what happened. The Democratic Party had a concept for the North that was nonsense. David Thompson spoke in his 2008 budget and he pledged that he was going to give St. Lucie an airport. I don't think he had to spend so much money on the airport. He could have bought a guy for Dennis Kellman. Don't need to spend money on the airport. And then, what was his proposal? That he was going to have, he says, ferries running from Sixpence to town. No, I beg you. Somebody living in Demoncorner, my constituency. This is how it would work. He would take a bus from Demoncorner to Spikestown, and then he would take a bus from Spikestown to Sixpence, and then he would get onto a ferry from Sixpence to town. That would take about 4 hours. Then you take another bus from town to your work, and then in the evening you do the same thing all over again. It is madness. And this evening, before I say anything else, I have to say to the rest of Barbados that it is time that the rest of Barbados rediscovered the North. It is time, Barbados, to let the North help to carry the growth and the development of this country as it was doing in 14 years under Barbados Labour Party administration. And I include Kerry St. James and St. Andrew and St. Joseph in this vision. There was a time when Spikestown was thriving. There was a time when things were being made to happen. And our concept was not one in which we look after my constituency and my constituency alone. Spikestown redevelopment was made possible by special development legislation that also applied to the city and to St. Lawrence Gap and to the Scotland district. And now we see a region of Barbados dying before our eyes. And but the rest of Barbados too. But in the north is where you have the greatest difficulties being experienced. And unless something is done quickly, Spikestown could die. In my time as Prime Minister of the country, not only did we bring back jetties to Spikestown and new buildings and new business, but the Carolinas will settle from Spikestown. And we established a link between the Carolinas and Spikestown to have that link lead to more tourism. And I was invited by the mayor of Reading. And Reading in England has adopted Spikestown as a sister city. So you have two places in the world, Carolina and Reading, have adopted Spikestown as their twin. And not a stroke of work is being done. In the interest of Spikestown, but of Barbados tourism, to take advantage of these enormous opportunities. And it's not only spikes down. The last thing that my administration did in 2007 was to take to Parliament a Scotland District Redevelopment Act. The Scotland District is 1/7 of Barbados' land area. If Barbados is going to have a commercial agriculture in the future, and I'm not talking about sugar industry, a lot of it is going to have to take place in a reformed Scotland District. We have to go back to the Scotland District and make it suitable for human habitation. But above all, when people come to Barbados as tourists, what do we offer? We offer people the scenic experience of getting into a car and driving through the Scotland District and say, what a beautiful country this is. That's what it used to be. No, it is just an abandon. And from the story, it is a wrong thing for 1/7 of our land, its space, the Scotland District, to be left abandoned. That you have on the statute books legislation to bring a Scotland District authority to restore that land for agriculture, tourism, housing, and whatever else, and not a stroke of work done for it. So that, wait for our manifesto, Barbados, that there will be a section in it called Rediscover the North. I'm not envious of what is happening in St. Christ's Church and so on. But surely the same attention that is being paid to put in 1,000 houses at Coverley could have been not diluted, but bring some in St. Peter and St. Lucie too. Because unless you bring serious housing to St. Lucie, the North is going to die. And I ask you all therefore to compare the two administrations, because it will come down to this. Read our manifesto and you will see that in our manifesto of 2008 we said that the Labour Party was working with the Small Business Association and the owners of Fairfield to put a township in St. Lucie. Now that was going to happen. But what did the Democratic Party do? They caused a man called David Thompson to get off his sick bed, dying bed, and go down to where is it? Pickering. On the pretext that they had a project for $1.3 billion. And the last thing that David Thompson did was went down to Pickering and work a hoax on the people in this country. Who will spend $1.3 billion in the center of St. Lucie? On what? So that it doesn't come down to this. A party that takes the North seriously, but takes the North seriously in the context of Barbados' development. Because what I'm talking to you about is not speculative things. Spikestown must be redeveloped if Barbados' tourism is going to develop. The North constitutes an important part of our national resource, and it must not be allowed to go into abandon. And Barbados' growth and development cannot be contemplated without consideration for the development of the North. I can't carry, and maybe all in St. James and start to forward down the Linus, because this evening he has a meeting going on. And his big thing is that he is building a polyclinic in St. John. But there's no polyclinic in St. James. And St. James is many times the population of St. John. So when are we going to rediscover the North? And I say that there's that passion still in me. Still got work to do in St. Peter and in the North. And in Barbados too. And they come to that second point. On the eve of the First World War, a man in a British statesman made the statement. He says, the lights are going out over Europe. We may not see them lit again in our lifetime. Regrettably this evening, I have to say to you And this is with no sense of pleasure that the economic lights are going out in our country. And I hope that I don't have to add the second part, that we're not going to see them lit again in our times. They have to be lit again in our times. And you start as my thing this evening. When the International Monetary Fund spoke this week, it did not take us by surprise. No. And before I say it in case, let me just say this again. I do not attack the Lyle world in his personal capacity. But I used to tell my cabinet that people who come to government are not necessarily experts. You have in government to hope and to believe that you will make the best decisions on the basis of the best information. That's the best you can do. You are not God, but you must have always the best information. And that the institutions that are there to enable good governance to take place by enabling the best decisions to be made on the basis of the best information. And there is no institution that is more integral to that process of good governance than a central bank of Barbados, who when they tell you that the rate of inflation is X, you must believe that the rate of inflation is X without having to doubt the integrity of the process by which those numbers were generated. And I will deal later with the issues of governance in this country. But there has to be a restoration of the place of the Central Bank of Barbados to a position where people can see it as the bedrock of our stability and the foundation of progress, in the belief that what will come out of the central bank is not inspired by any sordid, putrid, partisan political purpose, but is inspired only by a determination to give the people the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the unvarnished truth. And I have to say that sadly, the central bank has departed from that tradition in the way in which Mr. Delay has conducted himself. And maybe we have a government, the central bank, seeking to invent his own way of measuring unemployment and being laughed at. And I want to repeat what he said when he spoke at Sales Court. Delay words tend to tell the IMF that they are not to send a team to Barbados before the end of the year. They must be allowed to come, and whatever they have to say must be put to the public as the position of the International Monetary Fund. It cannot be that the truth must be shielded from the eyes of the people of this country. And last week, what the fund was telling you is more than you are feeling in your own personal circumstances. What the fund was saying is more than every person in the business community in Barbados is telling the government that this country is in a dire crisis. And not only in a dire crisis, that the time has long passed for this crisis to be addressed. I would ask you all to take a little journey. You know, Barbados is like a patient that has cancer. But the cancer could have been dealt with. But it has been allowed now to go on and on and on. And spread now until it has gone into the vital organs. And the vital organs of the Barbados economy is our tourism industry. I would ask you to go on a journey from Paradise in St. Michael down to Ammon Beach in St. Peter. Paradise boarded up. Boxed in. And despite all of the proclamations, you ain't sure when that can start back. Last week they talked about building a cruise pier for $300 million US. Now, the paper on which that decision was made has been made public, because it was said that the economic and financial viability of that pair have not been established. So the government wants to spend 300 billion US on something that this country really does not need. Although I suspect that this is going to be just another proclamation. Just like how you have the hospital being built 150 different ways, but you didn't get a hospital bill yet. But come down. And then you come down the road on the west coast of Barbados. There are, well, the four major hotels on the west coast are now closed, but largely for maintenance, but also because of low occupancy. I thought Sandy Lane, Cobbler's Cove, Coral Reef, and Colony Club. They now operating out here. And then you come down, Stopping Road View. Kings Beach, that closed. Seconds Beach closed too. That gone. And upon the hill where we were going to have the retirement villages to bring tourists to Barbados, they are abandoned. And come down, 2 spikes down.
Barbados gone.
So I asked you to come on this tour because when I hear people, I have just taken you from Black Rock to Spikes Down. We are now making our living on tourism. And if this tourism sector is allowed to go into that decline and decay, then we've gone past the stage where we can not only speak of a crisis. This is like a cancer that has invaded the vital organs, because our vital organ is tourism. And you know, colleagues, last month, August, tourism arrivals in Barbados are said to have dropped by more than 12%. As compared to last year. Dropped by 12. And why August? August is crop over. So if you can't get arrivals in a 10 minutes, you're in trouble. And what does the future holds? Chris Sinclair, I hope that when you were speaking at Dublin in this thing this evening, you were talking some serious stuff. The government has to stop playing the fool with the public accounts of this country. I can't begin to understand how you can have a system of accrual accounting where whether the money is spent or not once is an obligation that has been assumed, a liability, it has to be brought to books. And I can't understand how we can have this accrual system of accounting, but the University of the West Indies could be owed $150 million, and the government is telling you that the deficit is under control. Deficit under control, but the government not paying its bills. That's the most bewitched form of false accounting that only foolish people will do. If you fool yourself, and you know, there's a lot of men who got that kind of attitude, you know, they feel that they are these heavy hitters and so on, and people laughing at them. Not true. My name is this quote and last this evening already. And it's the same thing. Now, it's bad enough for the University of West Indies. But you have a situation where our tourism arrivals are dropping. What is the government doing? Now every year, and that's why I said that it's possible for us to compare the two administrations. Every year, I came to Estes as Minister of Finance. I told my Minister of Tourism, bring the numbers. Tell me how much growth you can give me, how much it is going to cost. And I told the Ministry of Finance, given the importance of tourism to the Barbados economy, the Ministry of Tourism must have first claim on these resources, because this is what pays our bills. That's the only way in which the Ministry of Finance should run, you know. Because if you don't have a vibrant tourism industry in Barbados, you really don't have a vibrant economy. So how can it be that the tourism authority is not being provided by the Ministry of Finance with any money now to have a serious marketing program. I'm told that they want about at least $4 million now well, no, I don't want to call numbers that I can't prove. But at the tourism authority perhaps owe people over $20 million or more already that they can't pay. People are now begin to start cutting off their credit. They have an immediate need for at least $4 million to settle with some immediately with some of the creditors. And the ministry is saying, well, we can only give you enough money to pay wages, but no marketing program. So as our tourism is going down, the Ministry of Finance is telling me, go look to borrow money from the National Insurance or some other place. And I'm saying that Barbados cannot afford this. We cannot afford to have a situation where the sector that is going to pay our bills is allowed to languish in this way. I am told that Mr. Fernando Stewart had a meeting at long last with the leaders of the tourism industry last week. I don't know if it is so, but I'm told so. And that he had to say that he did not know that the situation was as bad as this. And I came as a big shock to him. And you know, this should not come as a surprise to us. Because he got a view that he is to float above things. That he is not about building an economy. That he is building a society. As if building a strong tourism is not about building a strong Barbados society. So that, you know, we have reached a stage now in this country where we are getting to the point of no return. And I will deal with it soon, but where drastic decisions have to be made to stabilize this economy and to put it back on a path to growth and prosperity. And that is what the Barbados Civil Party's next manifesto will be about. Now, there's some matters that I need to talk about that. Can't wait. You asked me about growth and development of the Barbados society, and last I spoke, I spoke and CBC gave an interpretation to what I said, and the nation didn't bother to carry me. They didn't bother. Thank you kindly. Except that they made some passing reference to it, could go and fly fish, that was the wrong theory. And there's a gentleman from Barbados today. He has some very offensive references on his Facebook. But I want to talk this evening very briefly about the importance of dealing now with CLICO. And here I told that we need to put back this economy on the path of growth and development. Well, there are two aspects to the CLICO matter that I want to talk about. This one concerns the people as people, but CLICO's importance in this national economy. There are over 30 and possibly 35,000 people who are affected by the situation at CLICO. That is more than 15% of the population of Barbados. If 35,000 people are put in a position where their livelihood now goes in a state of contingency, they don't know if they're coming or going. Some of them were getting monthly interest payments; those have ceased. Some don't know if they can have a pension. Their pension funds are going to be there to look forward to. If in a country of our population, you have 35,000 people who are put in that condition of contingency, they're going to stop spending, and many of them are going to stop investing. They're going to defer actions. And I want to say that that situation in relation to CLICO, where 35,000 people have been put in a situation in a country of 300,000, where they have to be defer spending or investing, that is not a drag on the Barbados economy. And it's impossible to conceive of how you can get this economy to grow unless those 35,000 people are brought back as active investors and spenders in this country. That obviously, so that it is too large a section of the society to go unaddressed as a problem without that problem feeding its way into the general economy. So that I cannot conceive of how you can get the Barbados economy to grow unless you fix the critical problem and let those people feel that they can start spending and investing again and let that money start circulating in the economy again. So in the interest of Barbados, that has to be fixed. But also it has to be fixed because what has happened is wrong. I mean, something happens in a society that is wrong. The government has a duty to do what is right. Now, I wish, and I keep making this point. In 1997, when I brought a new insurance act to Parliament, the act was very clear that in the event that an insurance company has a statutory fund deficit, certain things must happen automatically. Now, what's the statutory fund deficit? That an insurance company, you make contributions, you have a insurance, you must get premium. You pay a premium, you get back your insurance at some time in the future. So the insurance company must always have assets set aside so that when your insurance policy falls due and mature, that it has the wherewithal to pay. So it must commit to a statutory fund assets equivalent to the liabilities as they may fall due in the future. Some of the assets is real estate, bonds, cash, and whatever else. But that is the law. And the law on the statute books is that the statutory fund, if there's ever a deficit, there's no requirement that the Minister of Finance must act. The law shields the public from the Minister of Finance exercising its discretion in the matter. That's why it's funny, it's amusing when people say, I should have done this and I should have done that. The law says if there is a deficit in that fund, then the supervisor of insurance shall apply to the courts and seek to have this matter addressed by putting the fund under judicial management. So what we've seen in Barbados has been an abomination. That the law or the statute books that says if the problem at CLICO is brought to a government's attention, the minister doesn't have to act. He doesn't have a duty to exercise his discretion in the matter. The law says that something should happen to protect the public interest. But what happened in this country? David Thompson chose not to let the law take its course. And when the deficit in the statutory fund was discovered in 2008, he didn't let the supervisor of insurance go to the courts and says, put it under judicial. Because it would have meant that Paris would not have been able to continue to do what he was doing. What he did was put an informal arrangement not known to the law, I think called an oversight committee, that has no power to act. And the thing was drawn out and drawn out and drawn out. And when it was being drawn out, things that Paris was being told not to do, he was doing. And I know they were getting information from Trinidad that I suspect that people had access to and used for purposes that I feel will eventually have to end up before the law courts. Because I don't feel that we should live in a country where what happened between CLICO and Thompson Associates should happen. And I have people in my constituency, because I represented them this evening, who have policies at CLICO, can't get out the money. But $3 million passed from CLICO to Thompson Associates and to Dr. Paris. And the money looking for that yet. But people in French are in a wrong second soul. But all this was allowed to happen. And I'm saying that the system failed. And that the government has a duty to respond when people are in a situation of difficulty, not because of their own choosing, but because the system that was supposed to be there to protect them failed to look after their interests. And that's one of the issues in the Clico matter. The other issue is what I call legitimate expectations. You've had a situation now where Francis Short tell people they can get back the money. David Thompson said they can get back the money. Priscilla said they can get back the money. And the United World tell people they can get back the money. So when people in a position who hold a position of authority and trust tell the ordinary man and the ordinary woman that we give you a bankable assurance that something is going to happen, people act on the basis of it. And when I have people in my constituency who heard you when you said in Parliament that they can get back the money, and people went to the bank and borrow. And now what circumstances do they find themselves in? That they have borrowed money from the bank in the expectation that they can get back the money from people. I know they hear a lot of garbage and baloney from you, from that store, that your government can't act because a report was stolen. Oh man! First of all, you didn't read it. I know it is stolen. So I want to make it very clear. I want to make it very, very clear that in this matter, and I want to repeat what he said, and I want to press the card correctly. At some stage, this matter has to be fixed. It has to be fixed. For the same reason that, despite the criticism, Obama said that the problem with the car industry in America has to be fixed. It affects too many people. It affects the development of the society. Fix it! It has to be fixed. And it will be fixed in part. And that's why I call for us to go to Parliament and fix it. Because that way Parliament exists. And I want to say that in St. Peter. The people of St. Peter sent me to Parliament to fix matters that need fixing in their interest and in their name. And this want fixing. And they want fixing in Parliament. Because at some stage, the people of the country will have to say, we have to fix it. And it has to be fixed by a policy that makes sense in the interest of the country and the interest of the people that are affected. And we have to find that balance. We can't break the country in fixing it, but we have to be fair to the people who are affected. And at some stage, I believe that the insurance part of it will be dealt with by some insurance company buying out. Because the insurance policy part of it is easy to deal with. The problem is the annuities. What events happen? People who are pensioners above a certain age go and get back the money now. To tell a man who is 65 years old that you can give him a bond for 25 years, it's a lot of money. No, I'll let you be clear. That's a joke. I mean, I had a friend who recently there, he told me, when I said, well, back my money now, because he says, I am in the departure lounge awaiting the final. So that there has to be part of the solution that there are certain people, and especially pensioners, who might have invested in these annuities as people. And I will tell them that, look, we are going to, as a country, recognize that if the assets of people can't carry it properly, that we're going to have to help to raise a loan to help make sure that you don't suffer in your old age. There's some people who are not of that age who may have to get cash and bonds. And the same thing with companies. I have already said as well that even if you can't borrow all now, there are some companies that have people pension funds invested. And I think the nation has people pension funds, and not true? And Leah and others? Well, if you can't pay all now, let you write off the balance of your future tax liability. But let them fix it. But you can't have a situation in a country where which affects so many people, where the system has failed, and the government does not act. And all I want to say again is this. That I hope, because friend, I can call election now. Call election would mean that federal has to make a decision. And federal do not know about the things. So all the people party who they want to federal call election, even do a calculation. The time has to run out before Frendel acts. But Frendel wouldn't know how to make a decision. He wouldn't know. But I want to make the point, and I'm speaking on the name of the people of St. Peter, that you cannot leave a people in a position of permanent contingency where their livelihoods are concerned. Governments exist to make decisions. A government must act when everything is on the line. And Barbados must not get accustomed to a government that feels that the best way to deal with a problem is to pretend that the problem does not exist. No. The second matter I need to deal with is the man that was raised by Kerry Simmons, and I want to add my voice to it because Dale has been talking about it as well. There is a danger that the Democratic Labour Party in these closing days may begin to behave like how the Iraq army behaved when it was leaving leaving Kuwait. You know that you can get beat, they mash up and break up everything and then go. So when Iraq invaded Kuwait, you had devastation on the way out. And you know, I always remember my Latin days on the Roman invasion of Britain. The Latin scholars said, and when they had created a wilderness, they called it civilization. We are in danger. The Democratic Party knows that they are losing this government. That's right. They are telling themselves so. The polls are telling them so. All across Barbados, people are saying one thing. We can't wait. I spent 28 years in politics. I have never had this experience before. People just waiting. But the danger is that the Democratic Party will do great damage to this country. More. Even more than they have done before. Because the Democratic Party has a philosophy. Do you remember 1991? Well, the economic holocaust of 1991 did not happen by chance. Which Haynes and I from 1989 were warning Barbados what Sandiford is doing and get this country in problems. And on the eve of the election, Sandiford was going to ask Ben, are you going to stop what you're doing and manage Barbados? He said, I am not going to do anything to cause the Democratic Party to commit political suicide. The Democratic Party has a recent history of making sure that they will sacrifice Barbados' best interest. If not doing so, it's going to cause them to commit political suicide. And we are in danger of that happening again. A lot of deals are being cut. Kerry spoke about the deal that was being cut at Bagatelle. I got a dog in this fight too. Serious dog. Big dog. The last remaining piece of land on the west coast of Barbados, suitable for development, for hotels and so on, is a place called Fort Denmark. Now, Clay Maskell is here, and Clay Maskell brought a no confidence motion against me and my government. When there was the feeling that we were going to take Fort Denmark and allow a man called Begum to develop it. You know, Clay, I told you then that my constituents had told me that they were raising some fowls and so on, and that you were kind of at the LP team, and that when you all left, the fowls were missing when I tried to buy it. But that's not the point. The point is, no confidence motion was brought against a Labour Party government because there was the belief in the DLP that piece of land called Fort Denmark was to be taken and be allowed to be developed by a man called Mr. Beercombe. Yep. Now, Mr. Beercombe is the one who doing all the work for the Dems now, you know what I'm saying? But that's not the point. The point I'm making is this, that when I hear about the issues about Bagatelle, and I see the correspondence, the man has a letter in which he is saying that in return for the land that I own in River Bay, I want to have Fort Denmark and the land at Bagatelle too. No. Why do I have a fight in this, a dog in this fight? When we became the government, the sanitation authority was using Fort Denmark, which is a historic site, and a site that is a magnificent, the large areas of land on the west coast, suitable for heritage tourism. They had that being used to wash down garbage trucks. I'm a government told the sanitation authority that it is an abomination in today's world for you to be having garbage trucks washed down on the outskirts of a town like Spikestone, on a site that is a heritage site recognized by the National Trust as a heritage site. Move those trucks and carry them someplace where they can be properly looked after, but allow Fort Denmark to become available for future heritage tourism development in this country. I am saying to the Democratic Party that the Democratic Party know how to cut deals, but they must understand me when I tell them that there's going to be no way in which they can take up Fort Denmark land and give that together with 19 acres at Bagatelle in return for land at River Bay. And I want to say this also to all potential developers in Barbados, that if you go and buy land, then you're taking a commercial risk, and if that land is not suitable for commercial development, then tough. I remember that there's a man who went this way very big to me because he bought land in St. Andrew, sand dunes, that he wanted somebody to come and develop. And they said, very tough, you cannot go and develop the sand dunes in Barbados. Get back to me. But that was his risk. I do not believe that anybody could have felt that I would have been justified giving somebody planning permission to develop the sand dunes in Barbados. If somebody is exiting because they did not give planning permission to develop River Bay, tough too. Because River Bay is a very scenic piece of land in Barbados. It is a wonderful, wonderful piece of land. And nobody should be asking the government of Barbados to allow them to come and take what is our best national treasure and develop it for their own personal benefit and their own. We must not live in that kind of country. And if you are getting, or you want to take a piece of land that is not suitable for certain development, you don't get planning permission, the government is under no obligation to buy the land from you or exchange it. You take a risk, you lose, man.
Right. Make some lose some.
And people have to understand that. So this business of what the government has no, because you're not getting permission to develop River Bay, that you got to give you a piece of land. No! You take a risk, tough.
Your choice.
And you can't know, do it by floating the law. And which law you're floating? But I would know, because that recycling facility located at King Garden was put up there without planning permission. The man came to me as Minister for Planning, Tom Planning said push it down. I said, but this is a reasonable industry for Barbados. Give them 3 years to find an alternative lot to put in. But they know that you need planning permission, if only because they know that what they have in King Garden requires planning permission. So to go from King Garden where you know you need a planning permission, to go down to Bagatelle And don't seek bad permission suggests that you must be mad. Because only mad people keep doing the same thing and feel like the wrong thing over and over again and feel they're doing the right thing. Or you're wicked. Or you're both. So this is history. And I say that this is symptomatic of a government that does not understand its duty to protect the public's interests. And it has to be fought. And we have also, as Kirby says, to fight this business about the use of the catastrophe fund. I mean, we have to fight the Labour Party. And why? Because the Democratic Party does not have money in the treasury. That's why they tell the university go and borrow from the NS and so on. And if they bring supplementaries, they run up the deficit. And then if they run up the deficit, they then get Standard and Poor and the IMF says Barbados is being badly run. So here's it. The Democratic Party has a problem. And that's why they say that like the Iraq army about to leave Kuwait. They want to spend a lot of money. They don't have a lot of money to spend. If they come to Parliament and ask for permission to spend money through supplementaries, the deficit is going to become too large, further downgrades, more junk, more difficulties to the name of Barbados. So they have to try to find a way to get access to money to spend for political purposes without going through the process of appearing as if they want to expand the deficit. And that's what this is about. Now, I feel passionate about it because the government of Barbados is about to embark upon the most irresponsible action ever by any government in this country. I sat as a Prime Minister for 14 years. And one of the most difficult things you have to endure is the agony of things happening in your country that you don't have the resources to respond to immediately. And that generally happens immediately after a hurricane or a storm. And who's the most affected? Poor people who are living in chattel houses, can't get insurance, so therefore they can't, like me or you, if our house is damaged, go to the insurance company and says, give back the money, I want to fix my house. So as Minister of Finance, and I'm not being a modest though, he said this problem has to be fixed because government exists to fix problems. Let us create a catastrophe fund in this country. And they gave the commitment that the government will, for at least 5 years, to build up the fund, put in each year at least $2.5 million, raise more from the private sector, so that a day will come then if it's a hurricane or a major disaster in this country, we ain't going to be scrambling about. That as a good society, a fund will be there to help certain categories of people who need help. And as Gary told you, we structured the fund such that people living in chattel houses, people who had incomes before a certain level, and people whose houses were less worth than 125, that if their house was affected by a catastrophe, we would give them not loans, but a grant to fix back the house. Now, this government got a lot of money to spend on a lot of other things, political, football, cricket, lots and stuff. But when they introduced the proposal for catastrophe fund, I said the government of Barbados will, in each year for at least 5 years to begin with, set aside $2.5 billion in that fund to build it up. They then did it for 2 years and stopped. They stopped. Government stopped putting in, private sector continues to put in. That fund is now worth $36 million. Already the government has stopped putting in the money. They then do not have the money to spend on the election. If they come and ask Parliament to vote it, the deficit is going to go up. So they have to try to find a way now of having access to money at the last minute to let go. So what this is, the catastrophe fund says that an individual who was affected by a catastrophe could apply, and National Insurance managed the fund for us, could apply to the fund, bring proof. Why you gotta bring proof? That A, your income is below a certain level, that B, that the house was below a certain value, and that C, that the damages were as stated by a committee that we established to be put in place, and that when once these things were satisfied, if your property was affected as a small man by catastrophe, we were building a fund in this country that allows you to get relief. What a wonderful government that gets you. Now, what the then brought to Parliament, they came the same day. They didn't come at 2 o'clock in the morning like they did with the National Insurance. Same day, we got to rush through this. Whereas the law says that the individual applies and that the individual meets the criteria and gets a grant, they say, oh, no, we can replace the individual now by these institutions that are the government. And that the Urban and Rural Development Commission can now apply and say that if we did work on behalf of individuals, then you're going to reimburse us for the work that we did. So that without the government having to come to Parliament, urban and rural comes, we between 2006 and now, we spent X amount on roads and houses, and we want to be reimbursed for that. And that this money will become available, although you the taxpayers already paid for that work. And this money will now become available for this bankrupt government to put into these institutions at the very last minute. Now, the reason why I'm speaking to you about this is a fight that is fighting. It took a serious and enlightened government to say this, that we're going to go to the public, take some money out of people's pockets, and set it aside in a fund so that if poor Barbadians are hurt by disaster, we will have something there for them to help them to recover from the trauma of a disaster. We did that. And we did it for a clear purpose, that government must be able to govern this country in this way. And it would be the wrongest thing for the Democratic Labour Party, they input a penny in it, to come and find $36 billion in their fund to help poor people whose houses may be damaged by hurricanes, to have access to grants, and take this money and leak it out. And for purposes not associated with any disasters in the future. And the government wants to do this in the midst of the hurricane season. So that we can have a situation, if we don't get up and fight this, where the $36 million that we were building up to make sure that Barbadians no longer have any future to endure pain and suffering because of disaster, that there was bombing Gilead, that these wicked vagabonds, man. and they feel strongly about it. As I said, it was the Minister of Finance who brought that to Parliament. And said that we're going to run the country better. And running the country better is when people are in stress, they must be able to know where they can turn to without butting out. And the mere government will come up and lick it out for partisan political purposes. But the law requires certain things. I'm asking you all to start monitoring this. The law requires that a committee must be put in place under the management of the National Insurance to verify every case. And that before any of this money is spent or is reimbursed to urban or rural, they have to give proof that they have evaluated every case since 2006, and that the people on whose behalf they don't want to reimburse are people who meet the criteria of the Act, that they must be living in a house worth X and the income must be Y. And we must see all of that documentation, and that I must also make the point that the law requires the National Insurance to have put in place structures to manage this fund. Structures that were free of politics. That a committee of persons would be established to make sure that people seeking to have access to the fund were deserving of that support in terms set out by the law. And that committee has not yet been established. And before this money is touched from the steward, make sure that that process is followed to the letter of the law. And Kerry, you start to fight this. They're fighting it. By asking not only their party supporters, but every good-thinking Barbadian and every person within the sound of my voice. Because these things are wrong. No, it is bad enough that you hear what's happening at Bagatelle. It is bad enough that every week something foolishness is happening, at the center of which is Mr. Dennis Lowe. But for government, I just think about it for a minute. That a fund is being established in a country, put aside for purpose and one purpose only. That if there is a disaster, that people who can't help themselves must have access to that money to recover from a disaster. Can you think of anything that is more wrong than a government taking that money and laying it out for political purposes? They can't be. And I say to you, therefore, that the piece of legislation that they brought to Parliament and the course of action on which they want to be embarked will be the most irresponsible action by any government in this country since independence. I can't think of any worse. And there's a lot of bad things that the Democratic Party has done, but this would have to be the worst. So that come as there's a fight to be fought. I'm looking forward to this election campaign. As I told you all. Because I trust that you will expect certain things from the RCA party. I keep calling for the election to take place, not because I'm hungry for an office. No, and hear me please. I know what it is to have been a Prime Minister on 3 separate occasions. I'm not here panting, lowing as if it's new to me. I know, and that's not the point. And the effort by the Steward to vulgarize it in that way is unworthy. But there are too many important things that must be done now. That needs to be done now, and that can only be done if this matter is if the matter of who can govern the country is put behind us, and then we can get on with the serious decisions that have to be made in order to put things right with this country. We have an economy that is going under. And every week, something more foolish is being done by the Democratic Party to carry on further and further and further. There are fundamental decisions that Barbados has to be made about how we're going to educate our children. That's right. How we are going to provide health care for our people. These are fundamental decisions. The Democratic Party has bought these matters. The sooner the people are allowed to choose the next government, the better we will be positioned to get to the task of making these fundamental decisions. There are fundamental decisions that have to be made in the future about how this country is to be governed. There's none of us who have observed in the last 4 years who can be happy with the direction of maladministration on which this country is embarked. We must make an issue in the campaign that we have to change our governance in this country. That if a person do what has happened at Kiko, that person can be walking around in fine Italian suits, involved in fine dining, but they must face the law court in the same way that anybody who carry a tin of sardines must. We cannot continue to live in a country where what is happening at the Water Authority continues to happen and nothing is done about it. That a man who should not have been in a position to make decisions anyhow, make them, so that law won't change it. And that if somebody is put in a position where the law doesn't give him authority to act, but he's spending the public's money, we got to be able to make sure that those things can happen. That no government can be so tyrannical. The laws of Barbados says that the transport board should not sell gasoline nor diesel, but they're selling it in defense of the act. There's nothing worse than a government that does not respect the rule of law. It's strengthening. And that we have to seriously address issues in election campaign about the nature of governance that will stop Barbados from becoming the victim of a lawless administration. These matters must be addressed. We have to get an election to discuss what is going to be the future of the Barbados economy in a serious way. There are major matters to be addressed. And you know, the only thing I hope this election is not about is the kind of things that happened the last time around. That people must not make themselves available to be purchased.
That's right.
Slavery done.
That's right.
And the notion that the government will come to you, a party will come to you, and tell you that your vote is to be purchased by through the free cars, and interest-free mortgages, and free houses. And madness like this. And that a government, a party will seek to constitute the government of this country, not by putting a program for the development of the country in a cohesive, coherent way before you, in a serious way, but going out and trying to find everybody who had a little grievance, and putting the sum total of those grievances together to be a program. That must not be the Barbados that we live in. And a large part of the problems that we have today is because the last election was a series of deals between David Thompson and a number of interest groups. That is why you had a grievance in their party. So Thompson said this. Franklin says that in a law that allows what happened with respect of the pensions, second pension to be taken, but he said there was some pulling that too. The police and the nurses and so on. That is not the kind of country that we must live in. And I say this to the Bible State Party. We are preparing a manifesto well advanced in its preparation. It don't matter to us when Frank Store calls an election. We have not just come down from them. No, I don't mean in that sense only. That I mean a political institution that has been laboring in the vineyard now for over 72 years. And that we understand our duties. And our duties are not to put the interests of the Barbados Civil Party first. This party was formed to free people from oppression. And to make Barbados a society of opportunity. And I stand before you, the son of a carpenter and a laborer from this parish, in fulfillment of the vision of the Barbados Civil Party and its founders, that this must be a land of opportunity. And that we will be putting before you not crap, nor blandishments or things to pander to a freeness mentality, but a coherent program to put back this country on a stable path to growth, to look after the interests of the poor,
That's right.
to deal fundamentally with the problems of poverty, to take problems and show that problems can be converted into opportunities, but more especially so to do that which governments should do, to make sure that the generation that comes after us lives in a better society than that which they inherited. And I thank you for the opportunity.